Hello and welcome to my channel Health and Wellness with Emma Mentel and to my day 14 update of my planned 21-day fast. This is going to be a longer update today. There's a lot I want to include, like the astrology, where I'm at, the next steps, and then just a few observations and insights that I've had over the last few days. Thank you so much for watching and for your follows, your comments, your encouragement. It really means a lot to me, and it's great to get the feedback. I really appreciate that. Thank you. So for me, the theme of today's update was around sacred delays. I've been very aware in the last few days, and it was my intention from the word go to make this more than just a physical journey. And I realize more and more as the hours and the days go by that this is very much a sacred journey, that it really gets one to do self-inquiry, to start relying on other things if you can't rely on food. You'll also see that I'm using a different setting, much more informal. I wasn't going to go and dress and put the whole makeup on before I do this. I am in my walking clothes, and I decided to do this here and get it done so that I'm committed to documenting this process like I was going to do. So for me, this is a different setting, and it actually feels quite nice to sit on a couch. If you're wondering where I'm at, this is home, and this is where I do spend a lot of time. So in terms of sacred delays and pauses, which was some wording and phrases that popped up for me this morning, very much around the stall in weight loss. So it's a point of frustration that I've mentioned in my previous post as well. And we are creatures of habit. We are also very much wired for reward, for evidence, for proof that something is working or not working so that we can take the next step. And I'm very much aware of this stall, even though it's moving ever so slightly, that it's giving me time to reflect and think about the next step. But I'm also aware of not being too harsh and too pushy with this, that I'm not becoming focused on results as opposed to tuning in, that I'm not becoming focused on goals and measured outcomes or results that I can see on the scale or on the blood glucose monitor to distract me from the inner process that's happening. And so with this current full moon, it was full moon here where I am in Durban, South Africa, yesterday, last night, I thought I would look at the themes that this full moon represents and see where I can tap into some of that wisdom. And according to a channel that I follow, Astrology Dome, and I love how she words her messages, this is not about peace. This is about truth. So of course, one can lose a little bit of that sort of peaceful sense when you feel frustrated. And I was thinking about what is the truth in this situation for me? What is the truth of where I am, where I would like to go, and how I'm going to choose to inform this process today, like now. Very much around trying to move away from self-abandonment and as you probably can relate to, I certainly do, when it comes to food, eating, habits, maybe harmful habits that we cultivate around food and eating, it can be a metaphor for self-abandonment. So if we are trying to root new habits, if we're trying to integrate new ways of being in our body while we are fasting and while we are losing weight, how can we take this forward into a new body with a new way of thinking, where we are not so drawn to the numbing of difficult emotions, when we feel uncertain, trying to come up with food or eating as just a harmful habit. And of course, this uncertainty for me right now can get frustrating. We all know that we want to have a predictable outcome. We like to have more certainty. And in uncertainty like this, where it's completely unknown territory for me, what am I going to do to establish certainty? What am I going to do that's going to be soothing, comforting, reassuring, and supporting me to continue to lean in to where things might feel unpredictable? Because in the past, predictability might have been the next meal or the next coffee. So it's really making me reflect on that symbolism around what eating represents and what self-care looks like. So when we're not eating, can we deeply anchor and become rooted in a sense of self-love, self-compassion, self-care, mindful about our habits, and something that we can then take into the future from here. We don't like change so much as humans. So when something is unfamiliar, it already starts to bring up some of the old shadows, those old shadows that can make us doubt or question, or making us want to find logical answers. And there's not always a logical answer. I've looked and researched about what does this mean, what does that mean. Sometimes it's just about really tuning in, going deep within when we start to feel that uncomfortable. And it takes a long time to change. Change doesn't just happen in a week or two. So, of course, these familiar old habits will start to surface. It's almost like the nervous system is trying to keep us safe and protected. So even if old unhealthy habits are not that good for us, it is something that's familiar. So the default tends to want to go back to that. So in the absence of food, like this whole fasting process for me, it's like almost a little bit of the shadows are resurfacing. It's coming up for me. Old patterns arise to be seen, and not necessarily to distract me or to discourage me, but for me to really notice where some of those old patterns have been harmful, or where those old patterns have been a symbol of self-abandonment and poor self-care, poor self-love. Can I meet these shadows with grace and with compassion? Can I notice these old habits or thoughts or emotions and be kind with that, rather than be judgmental and critical and harsh? Can I honor all the light and the shadow around this, the breakthroughs and the achievements, but as well as the frustrations, perhaps, and the questioning and the sense of vulnerability. Of course, this is a vulnerable state to be in. It's a little bit like feeling naked. What does validation sound like in this context when we have been so stripped of eating and food and something that might feel reassuring? Maybe it can sound like it makes sense that I'm feeling this. Even though I don't fully understand, I can continue to be present with this. So this form of validation is kind, it's gentle, it's understanding, and it gives permission to really get the insight. It makes sense that I'm feeling this. Feels like I'm being seen, I'm being heard, I'm being understood. So when there's that slight rebellious energy that bubbles up that says, oh no, just give it up and stop, what you're doing, I can start to tune into something that feels more understanding of where I'm at in this process. So that's about the moon, and that's about the emotions, and that's where I'm at. So let's look at the last 2 days, where I got to and what I'm doing, and to be completely transparent with you. It's important for me to be honest with myself and my audience in documenting this process. I read on some of Dr. Mindy Pelt's posts in the past, and in the courses that I've taught fasting to participants and to clients, what doesn't break a fast? And I started thinking in the latter part of this week that I felt I wanted to include some of those things. So she mentions a small amount of bone broth. My bone broth is still in the freezer. She also mentions half a small avo, and a little bit of nut butter. So in the last 2 days, I've had half an avo yesterday, late afternoon, I guess, and half an avo the day before in the evening, and also a small amount of macadamia butter. That's got very little carbohydrate, and in the bigger scheme of things, very restricted calories overall. I didn't have these foods because I was hungry. I wasn't hungry at all. I had these foods because it became very uncomfortable for me to look at my blood glucose graphs, where they were sometimes spiking without me eating, and just wondering whether my body is trying to mobilize protein muscle perhaps in order to get enough glucose, because this is an extended fast. I can't say that it's made a significant difference to the blood glucose. It's doing surprising things that I don't understand at all. And where I'm at today, where I'm going from here, I'm not certain. I have spoken to the 2 other people who are doing this fast with me and said that I'm a little bit frustrated with the stall and weight loss, and I'm aware of my body probably being under tremendous stress, even though I don't feel unwell. I'm not tired, but I'm wondering whether I should dedicate the remainder of the 21 days to a slightly different approach, not going back to normal eating at all, but perhaps by this evening, and I'll see where I'm at, having some broth. Depending on where I go from here, what the blood glucose is going to continue to do, I might do a few more broths in the next few days. I think I'm going to continue with half an avo a day. That's really some nice flavor. I'm going to leave the nut butter out because it almost feels to me like that might become something that I might overdo. I might be tempted to overdo. And if I choose to do something else in the next few days until next Sunday, it might only be eggs. I don't feel like food. I've been around food in supermarkets. I've been in places where there's other things. I'm not hungry and wanting food. But I'm very much looking at blood sugar spikes, and I do not want that to become more of a concern, and it's actually spiking more than when I'm normally eating. So I want to just really take care of that. Of course, one can start to overthink these things, and I wanted to find a tool this weekend that would get me out of my head and just back into my body. I did a walk yesterday morning. I also had my son's dog with me this weekend, so that was great. The company, the connection, the affection for me was more right brain stuff to try and get away from trying to figure things out. And I also started drawing yesterday, just playing with colors and patterns on a blank page, to feel just more rooted in the present and to get out of my head. I want to honor my commitment of the 21 days, but I also want to be sensible. I'm in no ways in danger of low blood glucose. I'm not feeling tired. I'm not feeling fatigued. There's nothing else for me to suggest that there's any crisis looming, but I'm going to try and lean into what this feels like and where I should go next. So what I want to do today is also honor a commitment I've made to myself. There's course content that I'm far behind with, and I have been procrastinating. So today I want to do that. It's a course that I'm doing, a Joy of Money course that I'm busy with, and I am behind with that, and I keep distracting myself. So I want to really catch up with that today. I also did some body brushing this morning, doing some manual lymph stimulation to make sure that my lymphatic system, there's flow in that. And I feel drawn to dancing, moving, putting music on, and doing that kind of movement to help me with moving past this sense that I have around feeling a little bit stuck. I am aware that curiosity is a big element for me. So rather than having to know that certainty, that answer, I can just remain curious about the next hour, the next day, the next step. That feels more open. It feels more inviting. It gives me permission to go with the flow. Whereas trying to find this logical explanation and all the rest, it's a little bit more restrictive. And I'm going to continue to be aware around this theme of the full moon of what I want to anchor in. What are the habits that I want to root? So when we're rooting something, anchoring something, we can sort of rise from that. A tall tree can grow with a well-developed root system. So I've started pulling out roots of limiting beliefs, of old ways of being in my body, and now I want to anchor some new beliefs. What are we investing in? Where are we spending our time and our energy? And that I will continue to observe today. When I feel distracted, when I feel frustration, I'm going to try and come back to something that feels like it's rooted in self-love. What are the habits that I'm wanting to grow? And that feels just more expansive. that feels like it invites me into something that's open. That is my update for day 14. Thank you so much for watching. I know this is a long video, but it's sort of giving you an update of the last few days. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe, and please also click on the notification button so that you will be notified of new posts. For those of you who are coming back to this, thank you so much for watching, for your likes. Please comment, please ask questions that I can answer with my next update. And have a beautiful day. And I hope you've had a wonderful, blessed full moon weekend where you've also tapped into this self-awareness, the insights, and the wisdom that comes with these gifts we get from the full moons.